Hey there. So I'm going to show you how to do a half hexagon from the beginning because in my last video I was about 5 rows in when I started showing the stitches from the wrong side. So I've got this pattern. I'm using the spreadsheet that Karen Thompson posted on the Knit Knotter Facebook group, and that has been fantastic to use. Thank you for that, Karen. So I'm going to start with, I'm using 4-ply superwash merino, and this is the Knit Picks Chroma yarn. It's kind of a roving yarn. So I have a couple of other examples here, but this is how I'm going to start. So we're going to start with a magic ring, and for a half hexagon I'm going to use the hook that's a 4 on one side and a 3 on the other side. It's a double-ended hook, and I'm going to do 8 stitches to start with. So this is the first stitch. I'm trying to make it so you guys can see, but 8 basically single stitches. There's a little bit of background noise. Someone has decided to trim some hedges this morning. So that's 5, that's up here 6, 7, and 8. And then I'm gonna pull the end through the loop, so it's just a single kind of loop. And then with my contrasting color, I'm gonna tie a slip knot. This just helps it to not fall through and not come undone. And I'm going to start my backwards pass here. So I'm going to flip this over, move everything to this side, and start on my backwards pass. And so we're going to be a yarn over and pull through 1 loop, and then yarn over and go through 2, yarn over and go through 2, and we're going to keep going that until we're almost at the end. I like to leave about 2 or 3 stitches on. And actually the difference between a full hexagon and a half hexagon is you're going to complete every single row. So we're going to go right to the end rather than leave a couple of stitches, and we're going to pull that last one a little bit tighter. And this is going to look a little strange to start with, but keep going because it will work itself out in about 4 or 5 rows. So you can tell this is the back side of the work because you can see these little horizontal bars on the stitches, whereas if I look at the front side of the work, that isn't there. It's just nice and neat. So now the next row is we're going to skip the second row of a regular hexagon pattern and go straight to row 3. And so we have a knit full, and we're doing this from the wrong side of the work. So the contrasting color I'm going to drop, and it's going to go to the side, and we're going to turn this back around because the yarn gets twisted up pretty easily at this stage. And I'm going to make sure that my bigger side of the hook is what I'm using for the forward pass, and the smaller side is to the right. So I'm holding my working yarn towards me, and I'm doing 2 knit stitches and then a full stitch. So I'm going to put my crochet hook into the next stitch from left to right. So I'm going to go in between and then kind of hook through from left to right, and then I'm going to catch the working yarn and pull it through and up. Okay, and you can see, maybe not yet, but you'll be able to see. I'm going to do that again for a knit stitch. I'm going to enter that loop from left to right, and then I'm going to grab the working yarn and pull it through and up. You want to make sure that it's not too tight, that you've got plenty of room, because this is very forgiving. The full stitch is just a matter of going in between the next two stitches, grabbing the yarn and pulling it through and up. If I turn it over, you can see that I've got 2 knit stitches and a full stitch. So I'm going to do that 2 more times to get to the end of the row. So that was a knit stitch, entering from left to right, second knit stitch, and then a full stitch. Now, because this is a hexagon and a curve, you don't want to get too far without starting the backward pass, otherwise the tension ends up kind of weird. So I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to start the backward pass the way that I normally would on any Tunisian. Sometimes you'll see here that the yarn is in between the first and the second stitches. It happens to me all the time because I don't put it in the right place. So I'm just gonna let go of that first loop, move that contrasting yarn to the back of where I'm working, and then start my backward pass. So it's a yarn over and pull through the loop, and make sure that it's not too loose, otherwise you'll have big chains along the edge of your work and it won't look very neat. So for the rest, I'm going to yarn over and go through 2 just to catch up to where I'm working. And I have about 2 on the hook, so I'm going to finish the row. So I'm going to turn it this way so I don't get my yarn twisted up. And I'm going to do, so I ended with a knit stitch, so I'm going to do 1 more knit stitch here, gather the working yarn, pull it through and up, and then a full stitch. And only on the first round of worked stitches, we don't have 3 loops here, so I'm just going to do a knit stitch like I've been doing in that last one, and you only need to do that for this first round of worked stitches. So then I'm going to turn it around and finish the backward pass to the end of the row. And this is a very amateur video. This is mostly just to help people so that you can understand the technique. So please forgive any long pauses or rambling speeches. So there we go. That is row 3. And that was worked from the wrong side. And you'll see that your stitches kind of look like this. So now row 4 is an even row, and I have an increase, a knit stitch, and then the increase for the corner, and I'm going to do that 3 times. And because it's an even row, I'm working it from the front side of the work. At the beginning of every row, don't forget, if you're using a hook that is a different size for the forward pass and the backward pass, don't forget to turn it over so that you're working with the correct size of the hook. So again, we're going to just let that contrasting yarn kind of fall to the side. I'm going to untwist this. Looks like there's a lot of legs hanging around. And so this is just regular chin in the round, like we've been doing in the hexagons. So I'm going to start with I'm not going to work into this first one. I'm going to work into the next stitch for the increase. So we have the twisted stitch and then the twisted knit stitch. Is always a bit rough to get through on the first one, but there we go. Yarn over and pull that loop back through. So there's my increase, and then I have a knit stitch, and then the knit and the single Tunisian simple stitch to end off this side of the half hexagon. So then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to do the backward pass for this side. So yarn over and go through one to start with, and then yarn over and go through 2 loops, 2 loops, 2 loops. So I'm going to have 3 on the hook, and then I'm going to turn it back over and do the second of 3 sides. So we start with the increase. So we have the twisted Tunisian stitch, and then twisted knit stitch, and then a knit stitch, and then ending the side with the knit stitch and the simple stitch. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it over and do the backward pass. Then I'm going to do the third side. So we have the increase, which is a twisted simple stitch, and then the twisted knit stitch. And then we have a knit stitch here, and then the last increase, and then at the end here I'm going to go through the 2 loops, and then I'm going to do my backward pass all the way to the end. You'll notice that the loops at the end get kind of big, so just pull the yarn to make the loop a little smaller. You don't want it to be too big in this instance. Okay, so that's the backward side and this is the front. And the first rows always look a little weird, but just keep going. So row 5 is where I started in the last video, I think. So let me get myself untangled here and grab my working yarn. Remember, working yarn always needs to be on the side closest to you. And we're going to start here with a twisted simple stitch, and then 3 knit stitches, and then a simple stitch to finish. So make sure that your hook is turned around correctly, so that if you're using a bigger side, that's the one that you're using for the first stitch. So again, the stitch at the end here that the loop is connected to, we're going to skip, and we're going to go into this next stitch right here. And so I'm going to put my hook in from left to right and turn it downward. Doesn't make sense. Turn it upward, I guess, downward towards the middle of the pattern, but turn it up, and then that is twisted. Okay, and I'll show you it from this side because I'm not sure if I showed this properly in the last video, but you put your hook in from left to right and you basically just turn it down. And when you look at it on this side, it's twisted. Then I'm going to do a yarn over and pull that through the loop. And you'll see that the stitch, I'm sorry if that was a bit confusing, but the horizontal part of the stitch is kind of big. So if you just pull the tension a bit tighter on the working yarn, it will make that a little smaller, okay? So that was my twisted Tunisian stitch, simple stitch. Now I'm going to do 3 knit stitches from the wrong side. So again, I'm putting the hook in from left to right, but I'm going to go through the stitch. So left to right and come through the stitch like this. And then grab the yarn and pull it through and up. So I'll show you from the other side so you can see. So this is my next stitch right here. I'm going to put my hook in from left to right and go through the stitch and then yarn over and pull that through and up. I'm going to do that one more time, putting that hook in from left to right and pulling it up. So those are the 3 knit stitches. And then for the simple stitch, so the simple stitch is going to go into this one right here. And what I found is if you keep the hook part pointed upwards, okay, rather than pointing down, we don't want that, we want it pointed upwards, then when you grab the yarn, you're pulling it through with that hook pointed upwards, and it's straight on this side, and that little horizontal part is on the back side, on the wrong side of the yarn, of the work. So that's your simple stitch. Then I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to do the backward pass. Just to there. So I've got 2 left. Turn it back around and I'm going to do the next side. So the first stitch is the twisted Tunisian stitch. So I'm entering the loop from left to right. And the hook is pointed upwards, and I'm basically just pulling it up like that, and it's twisted. And then I'm going to do a yarn over. No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm going to do a yarn over. And go through that loop. Let me try that again. Pull the tension a bit tighter. You can do the yarn over. I always hold the bottom of the yarn right at the base of the stitch so that I've got a little bit of room to pull the hook through. Okay, so that was my twisted stitch. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so we don't have these big loopy horizontal stitches on the correct side. Now I have 3 knit stitches. Feel free to use your hook to pull the stitch higher so that you can actually get it through the loop. There we go. Yarn over and pull it through. I'm going to skip to the end and do the backward pass so that we start on the next row. So I'm at the end of this row and don't worry about it looking kind of weird and not very straight as you're going along, because at the end when you go to do that final round with the border, I'm going to put a row of single crochets all the way along the bottom, and that straightens the edge out. The other good thing about this technique is you can just put a stitch marker in the last loop if you ever need to put it down and walk away, and nothing will kind of fall out. So the next row we have the increase, and then, so we just did this one, the increase and then 3 knit stitches and then the second increase for the corner. So again, I'm going to go in with my number 4 hook side, and I'm going to move the working yarn to the back of the work, and I'm going to skip this first one, this one right here on the end, and I'm going to go in through the first stitch, which was twisted on the back side, and I'm going to do the twisted simple stitch, and then the twisted knit stitch, and then I have my 3 knit stitches, and then my corner increase, and then I'm going to flip it over and do the return pass for this side. Through 1 to start with, tighten it up, and then yarn over, go through 2 till there's about 2 or 3 stitches. And then I'll flip it back and do my next twisted simple stitch, and then the knit stitch, and I have 3 knit stitches, and then my corner increase. Again, I'm not doing it too tight. There's a bit of room in between the loops and the work because I don't want to have my tension too tight. I'm going to flip it over and do the backward pass. And I'm going to do this to the end, so I'll pick up in a minute when I've finished this. So I skipped to row 9 of this pattern because the rows in between were all just knit stitch rather than any of the reverse stitches which show the pattern. So you can see that it's kind of looking like a half hexagon, a little bit rough on the bottom edge, but we'll hide that with the single crochet at the end. So I'm going to do row 9, so I'm going to turn this guy over, make sure that the hook is pointing the right way, and I have the twisted simple stitch from the wrong side, and then 7 knit stitches, and then a simple stitch for each side. So I'm going to do my first twisted stitch. I'm trying to make it so that you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm going to hook that loop right there. I went in from left to right. You can see I turned it up. Do it again. So the hook goes in from left to right. You turn it up and it's twisted. Yarn over and pull through that loop. Make this a little bit smaller. So then I have 7 knit stitches. So again, I'm going in from left to right. To just make this a bit taller on one side. Okay, so that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 knit stitches, and then the simple stitch, which again we go in from right to left instead of left to right on the other ones. Make sure the hook's pointed down, and then pull it through so it's not twisted. Sorry, I'm not talking. I'm trying to concentrate here. So then we have the third side and the twisted simple stitch. If I can grab it. Pull it a bit higher, I'll have a bit more room here. go, I got it. And then my 7 knit stitches from the wrong side. That will be at the end of this row. We won't have too many more long, awkward silences. You can see how I'm going between the loops, using my hook as a hook to go through the stitch, yarning over and pulling through and up. Middle, pull it through that loop, yarn over, pull it up. Then we have our last simple stitch. So we go from right to left, yarn over, just ease it through without it twisting on the correct side. I'm going to go through these last 2 loops. And then I have the backward pass. The only issue I have with this roving yarn is that it gets all twisted up after a while, and you kind of just have to bear with it. So backward pass all the way to the last stitch. Pull that last loop a bit tighter so it's not too loose. And then turn my hook over. The first pattern row is on the right side, so it's using stitches that you're familiar with. So the twisted simple stitch, and the twisted knit stitch to increase, and then I have 2 knit, 3 reverse stitches, and then 2 knit. So I'll do the first side and then I will skip to the next row. So that was 2 knit, 1, 2, 3 reverse, 2 knit, and then the corner increase. You can see those reverse stitches coming through, and then I'll do the backward pass and I'll skip to the next row so that we're doing the pattern from the wrong side. Okay, so this is row 11 of the pattern, and so I'm going to start with my twisted simple stitch in the first stitch. And then I have 2 knit stitches, which we've done before a lot. So it's number 1. Oh, I just noticed I didn't turn my hook around, so I'm going to do that right now. You can tell I've done that before. And then that was my first knit, so second knit stitch without splitting the yarn. Now I have 3 reverse stitches. The reverse stitches are easy doing it from the wrong side because it's exactly the same as a purl stitch. So I'm going to go into this stitch from right to left. I'm going to hold the bottom of the stitch, yarn over and go through the loop. Right to left, go through. It's exactly the same as a purl stitch. And I have 5 of these reverse stitches. So that was 1, 2, 3, so 2 more. So 5 reverse stitches, and then I have 2 more knit stitches, and then the corner increase. 1, 2, and actually it's not an increase because it's a wrong row, so it's a simple stitch. So I'm going in from right to left, yarning over, pulling that through without twisting it. And then the backward pass. The further you get away from the center, the easier it is to control everything because you don't have all these hanging threads everywhere. So my twisted stitch, ease it back a bit. Then I have 2 knit stitches, 5 reverse stitches, 2 knit stitches, and the simple stitch. So that was 2, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, knit stitch, knit stitch, and then a simple stitch. We'll do the return pass for this side. I don't use stitch markers. Feel free to if you need to mark the increases, the twisted stitches. I got a bit over taking them out all the time, so I just figured out what the stitches look like from the front of the back and went with that. So I've got 2 knit, I have 5 reverses, one more, and 2 more knit stitches. There we go. And then my simple stitch. And then the last stitch, going through the 2 loops. Turn it over, we do that backward pass. Oh. Pull that last loop a bit tighter. We have So I'm on the third side, and this is my just row of reverse stitches for the border. So I've got that twisted stitch to start, and I'm doing this from the wrong side, and then I'm going to have reverse stitches all the way along. Two more. And then simple stitch. Then in the last two loops, and the return pass. So I'm stopping it here so that you can see how to do the border for your own hexagon. So normally you would cut the contrasting yarn, and then working on the right side, I'm going to do my row of slip stitches, and this is the same as the border that is shown on the Knotter blog and the videos. So the border row, you go into the back of the stitch, first one is a bit rough, so I've got to, and then use slip stitch, so pull it through both loops, and we're going to do this all the way along. And I'll do a couple more, and you'll be able to see the effect. Like I said, normally you would cut this, and I would just leave that hanging for now and stitch it in later. So I'm going to go around the hexagon part, and we'll meet again when we start the single crochet. So I worked my way around doing those slip stitches at the back of the loops and the back loops. So now I'm going to turn the corner, and I'm going to do a row of single crochet along the bottom to even it off. So for the corner, I do a regular chain, and then I'm going to go, and it doesn't really matter, I end up going, if you want to go between, like in the middle of the stitch or into the chain space, it works either way. And I'm just going to do single crochet in your contrasting color, and then I'm going to use my hook as a hook and kind of go right into this space here and over and do my single crochet, and then for me into that purple and hook the stitch on the end here, and I'm going to keep doing this all the way along. And I want to show you what I do when I get to the middle, because there aren't the same kind of stitches in the very center. I'm going to go into this one, and then I'm going to catch basically the edge loops right by the middle and do that single crochet, and I'm going to catch the middle, and then I'm going to go right in here just on the other side. And I'm going to keep working my way along here. And if you find that it's pulling or looks stretched, just add a couple of additional stitches in. And it's really, we're just trying to even out that edge more than anything. And before you block it, it is still going to look a bit crooked, but the blocking will take care of pretty much all of that. And if you still think it looks crooked, by the time you have joined it to everything else, I guarantee it will look better. So that was the last one. So in this last stitch, I am going to drop my loop for a second, and I'm going to pick up the top of the chain and grab the loop and pull it through. And then you would cut the yarn and sew the backs in. Actually, I should have done a chain in there. I'm going to pull this out. Add the chain for the corner and then pull this loop through these first two stitches. Sometimes double-ended hooks come in really handy. So then if I were doing this for real, I would cut that white yarn and then use a darning needle to sew in the ends. But you can see the bottom is still a little crooked, but like I said, blocking will take care of all of that, and that is your half hexagon done. And this was the one that I had done and put on the Facebook group, and again you'll see, especially along this last row, I have that chain in the corner, I have the single crochet all the way along, and it looks way straighter than the little practice one, and that's because it's been blocked. So I hope you enjoyed this. I look forward to seeing your hexes, and good luck with everything.